however many years ago it was now, 16 or so, for the two of us, we had come to a point in our lives when we thought something was going to be changing, something was going to be different. We'd had this very strong sense that God was asking us to be ready. Be ready, put your house on the market.
So we put our house on the market and just waited on God. And people would say, well, where are you going to? We said, we don't know, but that we feel that's what God's asking us to do.
But at the same time, we'd heard that the then Bishop James, had asked this guy, Neil Short, who was out in the country church, to think about coming into the city and starting a new thing, particularly with students, young professionals.
Bishop James just saw that the areas around Albert Dock and the new developments were all really coming alive, and there was no church community in this place. And then one day, out of the blue, Neil phoned and he just said, I wonder if you and Bryan would be prayer partners with us. And then Neil got off the phone and I looked at Bryan and said, what's going on here? Is God telling us that we need to be more than just critical friends? And we just felt it inside. This is what God's asking. And so we got back to Neil and said, actually, we think we maybe jump on board here. Hadn't really clocked that we were saying we're actually jumping on board to come and be part of St. James. So we came down and had a meal with Neil and Mark, and he's like, oh, I'm so glad you've been prayer partners and so on. It's like, actually, Neil, we're saying we're on board. We're going to be part of St. James. So that was our core team from September 2007.
What happened after that?
We grew a bit more, but at that point, we were meeting wherever we could meet, in somebody's lounge, sometimes in a cafe, but no name, no place. And we weren't bound to anything. The building that we were asked to look at came along later, and we were quite happy that way, just to keep gather a few more in. But the most important thing, I think, at that time was, how do we start identifying our values? Because we've all come from quite different experiences and backgrounds. And do we understand the vision, and what's that likely to look like, and how do we map that out?
And that was really interesting how all of us came from different church backgrounds. And so there was a possibility that we might not have clicked in terms of working out values and vision. And yet that wasn't the case, because it was obvious that God had drawn that team together. And so when we sat down together, we were amazed at how easy it was to actually come up with the values that we now have today.